Hey everyone, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell, and if you enjoy this story, drop a comment below telling us where you're watching from. Now grab a seat because this is the story of a billionaire CEO's daughter no one could handle, until a black janitor did the impossible. Let's get started. The morning sun poured through the tall glass windows of the Sterling Tower, painting streaks of gold across the marble floors. It was the heart of New York City, where power walked in suits and dreams came with a price tag. Inside that tower ruled one of the wealthiest men alive, Richard Sterling, a man known for building empires and breaking competitors without mercy. But even the mighty have weaknesses, and his came in the form of his only daughter, Amelia Sterling. Amelia was everything people expected from a billionaire's child. Beautiful, spoiled, brilliant, and untouchable. Her father had given her everything money could buy, yet she seemed lost, disconnected, and filled with quiet rage. Every personal assistant, tutor, or caretaker her father hired lasted no more than a week. Some quit in tears. Others were fired on the spot. She was simply unmanageable. But that was about to change, in the most unexpected way possible. Down in the basement of that same building, where the echoes of success faded into the hum of old machines, worked a man named Elijah Brooks.
He was a janitor.
He mopped the floors no one looked at and fixed things no one cared about. Most people never even noticed him, but those who did couldn't forget him. Elijah was quiet, calm, and had eyes that told stories of pain, wisdom, and endurance. He was a man who had once dreamed of being an artist, but life, and the color of his skin, had pushed him down a different path. Still, he carried himself with a dignity that not even poverty could erase. He worked the night shift mostly, cleaning offices after everyone had gone home. One evening, as he was finishing up his duties, he overheard an argument echoing through the marble halls upstairs. Richard Sterling's voice boomed with frustration. "I don't care what it takes. Find someone who can handle her, anyone." The next day, fate intervened. Amelia had just thrown another tantrum, this time because her piano instructor had dared to correct her. The man stormed out, slamming the door behind him. Richard stood helplessly, rubbing his temples. That's when Elijah walked in to polish the floor. Their eyes met. The billionaire, drowning in power, and the janitor, quietly surviving in the shadows. "Mr. Sterling," Elijah said softly, "maybe she doesn't need another teacher or handler. Maybe she just needs someone to listen." Richard frowned, half offended, half intrigued. "And who would that be?" "You," Elijah smiled gently. "Maybe." The silence that followed was thick. Then Richard sighed. "Fine, if you think you can handle my daughter, go ahead. But don't say I didn't warn you." And so began an unlikely friendship, one that no one in that tower could have predicted. Amelia was sitting by the grand piano when Elijah entered her private studio for the first time. She didn't even look up. "If you're another one of Daddy's little projects," she said coldly, "you can leave now." Elijah chuckled. "Don't worry, Miss Sterling. I'm not here to fix you. I'm just here to clean up, and maybe listen if you ever feel like talking." Her eyes flicked up, curious. "You think I want to talk to you? A janitor?" He nodded slowly. "Maybe not today. But one day you might." She laughed mockingly, but something in his voice, calm, real, unbothered, made her pause. For the first time in a long while, she didn't feel like she had to perform. Days turned into weeks. Elijah kept showing up, quiet, consistent, steady. He didn't tell her what to do. He didn't judge her. He just listened. One afternoon, she found him sketching on a scrap of paper while on break. The lines were raw and beautiful, a face, a storm, 1,000 unspoken emotions. "You draw?" she asked, surprised. He smiled. "Used to. Now I just clean floors and draw dreams." Something inside her softened. "Can you teach me?" He hesitated. "You sure your father would approve?" "I don't care what he approves." And just like that, the impossible began to happen. Amelia, the girl no one could handle, started to change. Not because someone forced her, but because someone finally saw her. Elijah's lessons went beyond drawing. He taught her patience, self-reflection, and humility. She learned to see beauty in imperfection, meaning in silence. One evening, as they painted together, she asked, "Why are you always so calm, Elijah? Don't you ever get angry at the world? At people like my father?" He looked at her, his eyes deep with truth. "I've been angry before. It almost destroyed me. Then I realized, the world might break you, but you get to choose what you become afterward. Broken glass or stained glass. Both are shattered, but one still catches the light." Her breath caught in her throat. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Word began to spread through the Sterling Tower. Employees whispered that the untamable Amelia Sterling had finally met her match, not in another rich mentor or therapist, but in a janitor. When Richard Sterling found out his daughter was spending hours in the basement studio with Elijah, he was furious. He stormed down one evening and found them painting side by side, Amelia smiling genuinely for the first time in years. "What the hell is this?" he barked. "You think I pay you to waste my daughter's time?" Amelia stood up, trembling. "He's not wasting my time, Daddy, he's saving it." Richard froze. He had never seen her stand up for anyone, not even herself. Elijah didn't flinch. He simply said, "Mr. Sterling, maybe your daughter doesn't need more money or rules. Maybe she just needs someone to remind her she's human." For a moment, the mighty CEO had no words. Weeks passed, and the bond between Amelia and Elijah deepened. They talked about art, life, and the walls people build to protect themselves. She began volunteering at community centers, teaching art to kids. Elijah stood by her side, quietly guiding her. But life, as always, had a way of testing fragile peace. One night, while heading home, Elijah was attacked in an alleyway by two men who recognized him from the Sterling Tower. They hurled words soaked in hate and envy before beating him mercilessly. He was found the next morning, barely conscious. When Amelia heard the news, she ran to the hospital, tears streaming down her face. She sat beside him, holding his hand. "You can't leave me now. You're the only one who ever believed I could be more than my last name." Elijah smiled weakly. "You already are, Amelia. Don't stop now." When Richard arrived, he was shaken. For the first time, he saw what this man truly meant to his daughter, and what kind of courage and kindness he carried. He covered all of Elijah's hospital bills and visited him personally. "I misjudged you," he said quietly. "You did the impossible. You reached her when no one else could, and you made me see things I'd long forgotten." Elijah nodded. "We all need someone to remind us who we are, sir, even billionaires." Months later, Elijah returned to work, not as a janitor, but as the head of the Sterling Art Foundation, a new project Amelia had convinced her father to start. Its mission, to give underprivileged youth access to art and education. At the grand opening, Amelia stood on stage, glowing with confidence. "This project was inspired by someone who taught me that strength isn't about power, but compassion. That greatness isn't what we own, it's what we give." She turned to Elijah, sitting in the front row, and smiled through tears. The crowd erupted in applause. After the ceremony, she found him standing quietly near one of the paintings they had created together, the first one she ever drew under his guidance. It was titled "Stained Light." She whispered, "You changed my life, Elijah." He smiled gently. "No, Amelia, you just finally saw your own reflection." From that day forward, the Sterling Tower was never the same. Its cold marble halls now displayed colors, art, and laughter. Employees began to greet Elijah not as a janitor, but as a mentor. Richard Sterling often joined them, shedding his armor of arrogance, slowly becoming the father Amelia had always needed. And Amelia, she found her purpose, not in luxury, but in legacy. She and Elijah remained inseparable, bound not by romance, but by something deeper: respect, trust, and the shared understanding that the human soul cannot be bought, only believed in. Years later, when Elijah retired, he left behind a letter in Amelia's office. It read, "Miss Sterling, when I first walked into your world, I saw walls built from loneliness and pride. I didn't tear them down. You did. All I did was hold a mirror. The girl I once met is now the woman who inspires others to see themselves. Never stop shining, even when the world feels dark. Remember, broken glass can still catch the light. She framed that letter and hung it above her desk, a constant reminder that miracles often wear janitor uniforms, and that kindness can change even the coldest hearts. This was the story of a billionaire's daughter who no one could handle, until a black janitor did the impossible. Not by force, not by control, but by compassion. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply see the person everyone else ignores.